the LaxFactor podcast.
What is up, lacrosse fans? You're watching the 105th episode of the LaxFactor Lacrosse podcast. Today we got a bunch of news. We got Jeff Teat has been announced that he's going to return to Cornell for his super senior year, so we'll talk about that a little bit. PLL has chosen to host their championship series, or whatever the heck it's called, in Utah, so that's great. Just a little bit of more good news as we approach that season starting and we get back to some lacrosse action. And then I want to talk about, I'm going to do a series here over the next couple of videos where there's not a lot of news, where I talk in depth about kind of some player profiling that we're going to do. So I'm going to go by not by position necessarily, but by strength. So in this one, I'm picking my two favorite PLL offensive players. In the next video, we'll do maybe defensive players, midfielders, things like that. We'll do it positionally by scoring, and I picked the top 2-point scorers that I just happen to also enjoy watching play, Matt Rambo and Tommy Schreiber. So we're going to talk about those. Before I get into it, as always, be sure to like and subscribe. Like the video for sure. Just hit the like button. That helps us grow. Subscribe. That obviously is huge for us. We're approaching 9,000 subscribers. We would be way over 10,000 right now if it wasn't for the cancellation of the season. So help us get to that 9,000 subscriber plateau. Just like and subscribe. That's easy. And then you can hit the notification button also, so you're notified when we put out more videos and you can actually find them. And as always, go to LaxFactor.com. You can get swag. We have hats, t-shirts, polos, you name it. You can get shirts and all sorts of swag related to the podcast, and then stuff that's not related to the podcast as well. So let's get into this. We have a quote from new Cornell head coach Connor Busick, and I quote, "We are thrilled that Jeff will be returning to Cornell next season. He is a generational talent that makes everyone around him better, as well as an incredible teammate that works diligently both on and off the field. His leadership will be a great benefit for our entire program, and we couldn't be more excited that he will be in red for one more season." Now, that's the truth. All true. And Busick has to be pumped to be able to retain the services of Teat for one more season. He doesn't get him in the fall. He's going to have to do that weird, the weird where he withdraws from school in the fall, and then he comes back in the spring to finish his degree. But he was listed as the only senior out of the 12 that wasn't going to take part in Cornell's graduation ceremony. So I honestly got this one wrong. There was a part of me that felt Teat was probably going to end up going pro. I thought he'd end up taking either MLL or PLL's invite, and he would play with one of those organizations, and then I figured he'd end up being a pimp daddy in the NLL. Not so. He's coming back to Cornell for another year. I wonder if that played, if he was kind of like, hey, let's take that shot. If it works out, he'd come back. If it didn't, maybe he would have gone pro. It would have been really weird to see him transfer someplace. I would have liked to have seen where that place would have been, or I would like to pick his brain to find out if he was going to transfer or if he was forced to, based on this Cornell decision, where he would have been looking. But he's never going to tell anybody that, not now at least. The other Ivy League schools kind of screwed the pooch on this one. I know they think, hey, we're these big academic institutions and blah, blah, blah. But, Cornell took care of their athletes. The other schools, it's not that they didn't take care of their athletes. I mean, they're there for school. But these other schools, it doesn't look good for them, and I'm wondering if that's going to play in the recruiting. I wonder if a kid comes down to Yale and Cornell, if he picks Cornell because he knows they have a past of taking care of their players in a way that some of the other Ivies haven't. So that's cool. I can't say enough good things about Teat, though. Anybody who's watched or listened to the program, they know that I'm a big fan of Jeff Teat. He's a 3X All-American. He was an honorable mention All-American in 2017, and then he was a first-team All-American in 2018 and a second-team in 2019. Either way, the kid's an All-American talent. Once you get to the D1 level, they give out few enough All-Americans that 1 through 3, the guys that are usually 1 usually deserve it. There's always guys that are second-team All-Americans that could very easily be first-team All-Americans, and then the thirds could be interchangeable with the seconds typically, and sometimes even the first. So I typically just quote, kid was an All-American. Even the honorable mention, I count that and count. So, 3X All-American, he would have been a 4-time All-American by the end of it. 3X All-Ivy. He was a first team the last 2 years, and he was a unanimous first team selection, which is a big deal in the Ivy. In the shortened 2020 season, 12 goals, 15 helpers, 27 points, and one of just two players in Cornell history to post 3 straight 30-goal, 30-assist seasons, and I would think that the other person to do that would either be Pinnell or maybe McEnany, but I'm thinking it's probably Rob Pinnell that pulled that feat off as well. He surpassed Eamon McEnany from the 77 team, the late great Eamon McEnany, for third all-time in Big Red history and career points with 268, also sitting third in the Cornell record books in career assists with 152, and ninth in career goals with 116. So the fact that this kid is a generational talent, it goes without saying. The kid he's absolutely incredible, a great player, a fierce competitor, and just an absolute, he's kind of a little bully. I feel like the dude's got some swag. The dude's willing to scrap. The dude, he does a lot of these really little things that most attackmen don't do. You see guys, Notre Dame, what was it? I'm drawing a total blank here right now on Ryder Garnsey. You see Ryder Garnsey get a lot of print for being a tough-as-nails attackman that does little things, picks up ground balls, and Jeff Teat is every bit that type of player. I posit Jeff Teat, though, might be just a little bit better, although Garnsey is going to have something to say about that, and I don't blame him. So great news for Cornell. Great news for upstate New York lacrosse fans, because Teat gets to be in my backyard for one more season, and I'll get to make sure to go see him, hopefully, assuming we have frickin' lacrosse and fans and all that stuff. But it's good news for Cornell, good news for the lacrosse community as a whole. The other news we had here coming out today, and you could see I didn't put out an episode last week because what the heck was I going to talk about last week? There was no news. There wasn't even really crazy transfer news. Ooh, let's throw this one out. Crazy transfer news. Duke attackman CJ Carpenter is ditching the Duke. I believe he graduated. He's going to do a graduate year somewhere else now. I was wondering if that was going to start happening because that attack started to look really crowded with some of the young guys coming in. We have a transfer coming in, and pretty much everybody else seemed to be returning, and then you had Sowers to the mix. So I was thinking that attack line was starting to get really crowded, and a lot of people were saying who's going to get left out, who's going to be maybe the fourth guy that gets just a little bit of burn, who maybe gets bumped to midfield. That first midfield line was struggling, so they could have used maybe a little bit of attack-based offensive infusion in that first line, albeit maybe they could get their crap together for the 2021 season. And that second midfield line was owning stuff for Duke. So CJ Carpenter announces he's entering the transfer portal. That's kind of a big deal. Someone's going to pick up a very solid, super senior veteran attackman that has a lot of really good experience. Back to the PLL now. So we're going to talk about Matt Rambo and Tommy Schreiber. First, just the news that the PLL announced that they were going to do this tournament. They're going to go storming with the Mormons in Utah, and they're going to rock the PLL tournament in Utah, I believe at the University of Utah or whatever the hell that's called. Great facilities there. More importantly, it's going to play really well on TV. It is a great view. I remember in fall ball, in the early spring when they first got back out in the field, some of the views that they were sending out of Utah, whoever it was taking those pictures and putting those up on social media knew what they were doing, because the views from the field at field level with the mountains behind it as the sun was going down, it is going to be a beautiful landscape for some lacrosse, especially absent the fans. It kind of makes up for the lack of fans with the view. One of the things I was curious about is as things start opening back up, and Utah is pretty loose in terms of, very libertarian in terms of a lot of their laws. I was curious if they would end up having fans at the game in some capacity if it ended up being allowed. I know this whole thing initially was just no fans, quarantine tournament, blah, blah, blah. And maybe that is still the plan, but it'll be, we'll see what happens as we still have a lot of time for things to change. So I'm wondering if at some point maybe they do say, hey, let's open it up for a limited number of fans, social distance, put tape around the seats, all that good stuff. But that was big news, and we're a little bit closer to having some pro lacrosse to watch. Next up, we have PLL top returning guys. So in this kind of little chat here that I want to do, I'm really just going to profile a couple of players that I enjoy watching in the PLL because we have nothing else to really talk about, no news. So the strength of the PLL is the showcase and the effective job they did of putting, the lights on the players. And no player, I think, in PLL did as well with that outside of Trevor Baptiste, because Baptiste had a couple of really funny moments when he was mic'd up, and I really dug those. But Matt Rambo, I think, was one of the biggest beneficiaries of this kind of close inside on the field look at the players, micing players up so you can hear what they're talking about, unfiltered more often than not. So Mr. MVP, he scored the game winner in the inaugural PLL championships. He put up 19 goals, 23 assists for 42 points on the season, so that was a big deal. 28% shooting percentage, which sounds low if you're a college lacrosse fan because they tend to be a little bit more disciplined, but what I saw was the PLL, a lot of those guys are hanging in the 25 to 33% range or whatnot, so that's an average shooting percentage, but only 20 turnovers, despite the amount of burn, or not burn, but despite the amount of time this guy spends with the ball in his stick, 20 turnovers. He's a very efficient player. That's actually a pretty good number. 9 GBs, not a threat there. Partly, though, because he doesn't turn the ball over. A lot of attackmen that end up with a lot of GBs are getting GBs because they're getting stripped and they're picking the ball up, or their buddy's getting stripped and they're picking the ball up. Does a bit of everything, but functions most effectively as a bully dodger. He is a meatball. Dude is short, strong, but athletic is all get out. He does not play like a squatty, built like a brick shit house type attackman. Guy, he'll score on dive goals. He's legit old school air gate. I even saw him bust out in one of his highlight reels from behind the cage. He's got surprising hops for just a little guy. He scores 15. He's an aggressive dodger. He'll take that 15 seconds with the ball in his stick to dodge up the alley, back down, to rock him back in, try to get into the middle of the field. The guy will dodge hard, but there's a lot of guys that would dodge like that. Lyle Thompson was one of those. Connor Fields is one of those guys. The difference with Rambo is Fields is kind of an American, I'd say native Canadian hybrid in the way he dives. You look at the way Lyle dodges. His dodge is very native style in the sense of how he carries a stick, a lot of two hands on the stick, a lot of really fancy and highly technical stick protection, like almost like a keep away that Lyle used to play. And you could tell Connor Fields picked up on a lot of that and carried a lot of that after his freshman year of playing with Lyle into his game. But Rambo is a fully American style attacker in the sense that his dodging is a lot of dropping to one hand, arm up, and a lot of just mixing up, dropping to one hand, coming in, getting two on the stick. So he mixes it up, but he looks like an American dodger. Slow, plodding dodges that wear guys down, a lot of leaning into guys, a lot of bullying and pushing into guys, but surprisingly quick and agile on his feet. He'll inside roll someone and then bust the dive out also. So you got to watch out for him. Defenders have to respect him. He draws a boatload of double teams because of his heads up dodging capability, because he does carry the ball for a long time. When you're willing to dodge and redodge and finally you get a step, the defense is eventually going to come. Or I think one of the reasons he's such an efficient feeder is that he holds the ball so much and kind of wears the defense down mentally to the point that that guy waiting to slide eventually is like, screw it, man, I'm just going. Or they go halfway, or they end up watching him too much and it frees guys up on the backside. Enough cannot be said. The point total that he has, the point totals that he put up do not do him justice in terms of what he does on the field. He truly is Mr. MVP in my book in the PLL. Incredible player to watch. And if you're an attackman, especially if you're a short, squatty attackman, watch this guy play. But every attackman, especially American-style players, should watch this guy play and try to borrow from him, and try to borrow from him as much as you can. Great at question mark dodges, simply because he's a good body, has a good body with a good force, and he doesn't get pushed off his spot. But overall, Matt Rambo deserved the MVP. He deserves all the accolades and the attention that he's gotten so far. Let's see what else I had on here. I did that. Patient and efficient. That was one of the things I touched on briefly, but not enough. He's patient and efficient with the ball. So as I said, considering how much he touches the ball, the fact that his turnovers aren't higher it says a lot about him as a player, because with the high assist numbers, a lot of times guys end up with high assist numbers. They also end up turning the ball over at a huge clip because they're taking a lot of chances. In his case, I think what I talked about, where his ability to be big and not get pushed off his spot, his ability to protect his stick, his willingness to drop down to one hand, but his quick hands get those two hands back on his stick quick and allow him to feed, and the fact that he holds the ball. I think a lot of his assists come late in his possessions, where it's like, hey, I just dodged, redodged, and now as I'm fading back to X to maybe redodge again, boom, somebody's open, hits him, they score. So he's super efficient considering the amount of touches he gets, and that just makes your offense that much better. No wonder they won the championship. And then he's a great leader, fun to watch play, fun to listen to him talk. He seems to be a good locker room guy, a la like a Pat McAfee kind of fellow. I just picture him being a fun guy to be around. So you can't, those types of guys, those kind of rah-rah guys, those guys, it's easy for a locker room to kind of get on board with them. So like I said, can't say enough about him. Incredible lacrosse player, incredible talent, and the PLL is stupid lucky to have him. Now, the other guy I want to talk about, Tommy Schreiber, now a different player. Rambo was the leading scorer in the league. Tom Schreiber was the second leading scorer in the league. But Schreiber was the second leading scorer in the league as a midfielder. Schreiber is the best midfielder in the world. The Archers have an incredible player in Schreiber. Big, strong, athletic, high IQ, a leadership guy, a guy that everybody looks up to, both physically and emotionally. 17 goals, 18 assists, and 37 points in 10 games. He did get injured, I think, in that last game, or maybe it was in the playoff game. I can't remember. He jacked up his shoulder. 28% shooting percentage, similar to Rambo. And did I just say Rambo? Who was I talking about above? Oh, okay, I was talking about Rambo. Man, I'm having a brain fart here. First show back in a while. 28% shooting percentage, and his shooting percentage was the same 1 point as it was from 2 points. He was 2 of 7 for 2-pointers on the season for 28% there, and then 28% overall as a shooter. 22 turnovers and 9 ground balls. I mean, come on. Guy puts up 37 points from the midfield. 8 of the 9 top scorers were attackmen. Schreiber is number 2 in the league in points from the midfield. That is a big deal. The second highest scoring mid beyond him is the 10th leading scorer in the league, in Jake Fricaro, and he's got 27 points. So Schreiber, 10 points more than Fricaro. That's good enough to put him up at second in the PLL in scoring. He's just too much to handle. He's just way too much. Perfect blend of high IQ, athleticism, and size, and he has incredible stick skills and control of his stick. He's competent in all aspects of offensive gameplay. He's a heads-up dodging midfielder, obviously, as outlined by his high assist numbers. A true triple threat. He can dodge and create his own offense. He can score, and he can feed. So everything, he's a triple threat. You don't get that too often, where you get a midfielder who's as productive as an attackman. And in the pro league, you do a little bit more, but he's the midfielder that's more productive than all of the other guys compared to all of these incredible attackmen that, a lot of them are considered the best in the world. And as we talk about the too much to handle, oh no, I just said that one. And then one of the things I love about Schreiber is he can spot shoot, he can shoot on the run, shoot in the dodge, he can dodge into the middle of the field, he can handle you down the alley. The thing that I was the most impressed about with Schreiber in the inaugural PLL season was his feeding ability. And I'm not talking dodging, seeing a guy open, hitting him, score. I'm talking 2 instances in particular that I did cover during the PLL season where he's kind of dodging wide down the alley, might not even be trying to go to the rack. It might have just been the ball was getting around type thing. And he puts passes across. No one throws that cross-field pass across their body like Schreiber does. As he's coming down the right side of the field, here's the cage. He's coming down the right side of the field. Goalie's facing this way. And sees a guy over here. He will put that pass on a rope across the field, hit that guy right in the box, and score. His ability to kind of just throw that ball while on the run, while taking punishment, and then still deliver a dime from 15, 20, 25 yards. It's second to none. The guy, his feeding ability is absolutely insane. So that's one of the big things that I liked about Schreiber was that he's a weird midfielder. He's a prototypical midfielder, but he's a weird midfielder, and his ability to generate offense like an attackman, but from the midfield side of the field, it's truly something to see. And because we are short on news, I mean, this is going to be just a short episode today, so that's really it. No, I'm not going to talk about everything else that's going on in the world. No, I'm not going to talk about that weird thing, the weird word that starts with a V. There's like a C and a V involved in it. Not going to talk about that. Not going to talk about any of the protests or the looting or any of that. At this stage, I'm just trying to work, get back to life, and raise some children. So no no controversy out of me. I'm not going to belittle anyone, and I'm not going to speak up for anyone at this stage here. And I don't mean speak up. That's a bad word. What I mean is I'm just not going to get into the hubbub of all of that. It's already happening in the press. You don't need it for me. Let's just stick with lacrosse because that is what I know. And the Teat stuff is great. I'm really excited. We're all going to get to see some Jeff Teat come back. We need that in the lacrosse world. Can't wait for the other lacrosse podcasts that I listen to come back. I see the Crease Dive had taken a little bit of a hiatus. I know the Inside Lacrosse podcast has been rolling a little bit, but without all the news, things are getting a little bit boring. I thank you guys for listening to me ramble through all of this crap, as we haven't had a whole lot to talk about. And I am not going to guarantee that I'll be back Thursday, because if there's not news, we might as well just not do this, outside of maybe I do come back and do another one on Thursday, just sticking with the PLL stuff. Either way, I can't decide. So as always, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Be sure to like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, share the crap out of this with your friends, with your family, with your loved ones, because this really is just the most important lacrosse podcast on the face of the planet Earth. We're doing really important work here at LaxFactor in my basement office. You can actually see here we're remodeling a little bit. So I've got the crap off the wall. Everything's repainted. Trim was down. Floor is out. So I'm afraid I might even have some weird audio echo here today, but we'll see. So that is it. As always, like, subscribe, hit the notification bell. Be sure to share the podcast with your friends. And thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Hoost is out.